Hey, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be going over 5 original Game Boy games that I think are still pretty fun to play to this day. First, a little bit of a caveat. As you may notice, we're not going to be playing these games on an original Game Boy. We're going to be playing them on my Game Boy Advance, which I have modded with a backlit screen, simply because it is going to be a lot easier to see the games, to kind of see what's going on. The original non-backlit screen of the Game Boy was hard to see in person, let alone on video, so we're going to be rolling with my Game Boy Advance for this one. Just a little bit of an aside, the screen in here is actually an old mod. This is like a 5-year-old mod. This is before they had all the fancy IPS mods, all the funny playing, all the current mods they have for the Game Boy Advance. The screen in here is actually an original Game Boy Advance SP screen, an AGS 101 model. So this is like the OG backlit mod for this version of the Game Boy. Anyways, let's get right into it, guys. Quick pop-in from Editing Zach here. These games are in no particular order. They're not like a top 5 list, top best Game Boy games list, nothing like that. Just 5 games that I've been enjoying lately that I think are fun and worth talking about. We are going to start out with a great little racer, F1 Race, for the original Game Boy. This game is just a ton of racing fun. This was a very early release on the original Game Boy, but man, it still packs a heck of a punch, tell you what. So you have your Grand Prix mode, which is like your basic Grand Prix. You can do different kinds of races against different competitors. You also got time trials where you race for your best time, and multi-game, which is, in my opinion, one of the coolest features of this game. In multi-game, what you can do is actually hook up via link cable up to 4 players and all race each other at the exact same time. Currently, I do not have 4 friends with 4 Game Boys and 4 copies of F1 Race, so we're not going to be able to show off that mode, unfortunately. But very cool mode nonetheless. This game also has a saving feature, which is very nice in my opinion for early Game Boy games. Here we are on our second race in Canada. You can pick between a couple different kinds of cars. And honestly, in my opinion, the driving feels really nice. It feels really tight. Doesn't feel super loose or anything like that. You got a little mini map in the bottom, as well as some other info like your speedometer. I really like the scrolling effect that this has. I think it's pretty impressive for the hardware it originally came on, the original Game Boy. And the backgrounds look great as well. I guess this is supposed to be Canada, so it's like a snowy mountain. Here's a different background that's kind of a desert vibe. But yeah, I think it all just comes together really nice. Tight controls, really cool looking backgrounds, awesome scrolling effects. And it kind of surprised me when I first picked it up. Given that it's an original Game Boy game and the limitations of that hardware, I think this really had a lot to offer, and it's pretty good. Check it out if you have a chance. The next game on our list is Alleyway. If you've ever played Arkanoid or Breakout or a game like that, you're gonna love this game. It is the exact same vibes as those games. It's a block breaker game, and it's a really good one in my opinion. A fun little tidbit is actually Mario is the one piloting this little paddle ship. You see a little animation of him hopping in there at the beginning of the game. But to me, this just kind of embodies what I like in a Game Boy game. I like a simple game that's fun that I can just pick up and play, and it just never gets old. It's just kind of one of those games you can kind of mindlessly play and have some fun with. This is a genre of block-breaking games that I would like to see come back, honestly. I know there are some indie games that have been made that do kind of take this to another level and do some cool stuff with it. I really respect those, because I feel like this genre of game kind of went away in the past decade. And yeah, this game also does some cool stuff like scrolling bricks. As you go through the levels, you'll get some different characters that the bricks are in the shape of. But all in all, I find this to be a really relaxing, easy pick up and play experience. And that's really what I'm looking for in a lot of my Game Boy games. So yeah, definitely check out Alleyway. In my experience, it's pretty easy to find. Next, we're going to be talking about Donkey Kong Land, which is actually a later release in the Game Boy's life cycle. It was developed by Rare and was meant to sort of be a copy of Donkey Kong Country, which of course came out for the Super Nintendo. If you can imagine, that is not an easy thing to do on an original Game Boy, and that's where this game kind of shines. It's very impressive in my opinion, what it can do on the hardware. Now, I've been playing all these games so far in black and white, but I'm not going to be playing this one in black and white for this filming. The reason is, and you'll see this a lot on forums talking about this game, when you play in black and white, there's so much going on the screens, and the sprites are all kind of just the same colors. It can be really hard to tell exactly where things begin and where things end. Like Donkey Kong here just kind of blends in with the trees in the background, and it can end up being a little bit difficult to see enemy sprites and to know what's going on. So if you're playing on original hardware, you're going to just kind of have to deal with that. But if you're playing on something like a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance, of course it will assign a color palette for you, and the color palette for this game changes the color of the sprites, which is very nice. And there you see Donkey Kong has been made to be very contrasted from the background, making things much easier in my opinion. Look how much just clearer and easier to understand everything is now. All the important things like the enemy sprites, the character sprites, are all very contrasting. Even the collectibles like the bananas have been made to stand out much better. This is definitely a very fun Game Boy platformer in my opinion, one of the better on the system. If you like the Donkey Kong platformer series, I definitely recommend checking this one out. I think it is a really cool piece of history in the Donkey Kong series that many people have not played or seen before, but it's a lot of fun. And as you can tell by just the backgrounds and everything going on here, very impressive for the original Game Boy. Now, I can't really imagine playing it on the original Game Boy screen with the pea green, low contrast look. So to all my friends back in the day who did do that, good for y'all. Y'all are some troopers, but playing it on something like this, playing on a Game Boy Advance, emulating it, ton of fun. Definitely check it out, guys. Another fun platformer on our list is Looney Tunes from Sunsoft. I just picked this one up very recently. As you can tell, the previous owners were apparently Luke and Seth, so shout out to those guys if y'all are around. I don't know what you're doing these days, but thanks for Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes so far has turned out to be a really fun platformer from what I've played of it, and it's already becoming one of my more liked games in my Game Boy collection. According to the title screen here, it looks like it was released in 1992, so before I was actually born. Each stage you get to play as like a different character. Here we are playing as Daffy Duck. Daffy Duck has this kind of cool, I don't know if it's like a frisbee or a boomerang or what, but you throw it and then it kind of comes back and it kind of follows you if you like jump. It'll kind of like follow you no matter what. You can kind of use it to like smack enemies in interesting ways. Like you can get it to like fly up and hit them like that. So yeah, the frisbee thing is a cool little weapon design in my opinion. I like it. Luckily you do have a few lives before you get a game over. You get some cool platforming like this. Got to jump on these little fat birds. Here you got another little boss fight kind of section. And I'm about to die. Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. Well, that worked out honestly better than I expected. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of fun action going on here. I missed whatever that is. Okay. So yeah, this game does have some difficulty, as you can tell. So, I mean, I am pretty new to this one, so I haven't played it too much. But from what I've played of it so far, I really am enjoying it. But everything feels good in this game. Everything feels tight. The platforming feels good. The physics feel good. Nothing feels wonky. If I fall off a ledge and die, I feel like it's my fault. I don't feel like the game's to blame for that. So if you like old school platformers like this, 100% recommend this one. So far, I've really been enjoying. Honestly, too, the sprites are cool. The sprites are great. The backgrounds are great. And here's our first boss. And I got a game over. I'll probably talk about this game more in the future because it's a lot of fun. But for now, we will move on to our last game. And that, of course, is the OG Game Boy game where it all began, Tetris. Yeah, a little bit cliche, but guys, Tetris is one of those games that just never gets old for me. I love Tetris. I love Tetris on the Game Boy. Honestly, Tetris on the Game Boy may be my favorite version of Tetris to play. Although if I'm emulating it, I will usually go with Tetris DX. Unfortunately, I do not currently have a copy of Tetris DX. Still, the OG Tetris it is. We're going to be talking about that today. Of course, as you may already know, Tetris was released for the Game Boy. Such a great game, such an interesting story. If you've never heard the story of Tetris, check out Gaming Historian's video on it. It's kind of crazy and kind of awesome. They also recently made a movie about it. The movie is definitely pretty embellished. It does, however, follow kind of the general true story of the events around Tetris. One of the most interesting stories in gaming, in my opinion. Anytime I bring my Game Boy somewhere, I bring Tetris to. Tetris is just the quintessential Game Boy game, in my opinion. Something you can put in, play for a while, have a little challenge, and then when you're done, you're done. And the great thing about a game like Tetris is that there's no pressure to just keep playing. There's no story. It just is what it is. You don't have to worry about beating this level to get to a save point. There's nothing like that. You just play as long as you want to play, and when you're done playing, you're just done. Whenever your bus ride's over, your car drive, whatever it is that you're trying to pass the time on, you just put down the game and you're done. You had some fun. And to me, that is one of the most quintessential things you find in a Game Boy game. Something with a lot of replayability, something that's simple and easy to understand, something you can pull out and jump right into the action. Honestly, I was saying this on another video, but I think that's what made Pokemon such a great Game Boy game too. You could pull out Pokemon, grind up your monsters a little bit, save anywhere you're at in the game, put it back in your pocket and play it again later. But yeah, I had to include Tetris on this list, not only for being the OG Game Boy game, but for being my favorite Game Boy game of all time. I don't know why I don't have Tetris DX yet. I really need to get a copy, because I do prefer that version just because it has fun colors, and colors are fun, guys. Come on. Who doesn't like fun colors? But yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. If you get the chance to pick up one of these games, I definitely would recommend any of these you see here. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for listening to me talk about 5 of my favorite Game Boy games. If you're not subscribed, hit subscribe for future uploads. Now go have some fun playing some Game Boy games. Later, guys. If you like fun Pikmin playstyle arcade games, also check out this video on the Pico 8 right here. It's pretty cool. Have you heard of Pico 8? Check it out.